Buying a home just got harder. And I mean, a lot more stressful, like an added component. I've been getting this question a lot about the rule changes and the law changes regarding commissions. And I'm actually gonna read this question out loud because I think this guy really summed it up well. The real estate agent I've been talking to met me at a coffee shop and we talked through what I'm looking for. And then he brought out a contract saying that I'm gonna owe him a commission when I buy a house. Now this smelled wrong because I thought the seller pays it. That's what my parents told me. And I know there's a commission rule change, but I'm not too familiar about exactly what this all means. But paying the commission felt like a red flag. That's a great question, and I'm gonna cover it. I'm gonna actually go into some pretty extreme detail here. So starting on August 17th, 2024, we are entering a new era of real estate. I'm gonna go over everything we know about the rules, and most importantly, how it impacts you and your family if you're buying or selling a home. So if you're thinking about selling a home, watch at least a minute 10, because I'm gonna cover that situation and how it's actually helping sellers there. And bear in mind that this information is gonna update and change throughout the second half of the year. I'm sure between now and August 17th and even 2025, the DOJ is going to have some more issuances and some more decisions as more questions are being answered. Subscribe to stay up to date on all of that. And then as well, we cover a lot of stuff in Metro Detroit. Also, if you're looking for a home or looking to sell a home, scope out our 5-star reviews. I'd be honored to get the call to help you and your family move on to the next part of your life. I truly enjoy doing it. I really love it. 23 years later, still love it. Okay, so there are some appeals that are still working their way through court from sellers and buyers, mainly around saying that by not being able to state a commission, that's one of the rule changes, now sellers and listing agents can no longer put a buyer agent commission, what they want to pay to a buyer's agent in the multiple listing service to bring them a buyer. They're saying it's unconstitutional. And yep, they took it all the way to the freedom of speech, and that the Department of Justice is infringing on their right to say something. That's a big deal, guys. Like once you get into freedom of speech issues, that's a big deal. And that's gonna take time, probably a year to work through. So we're gonna see some updates as this goes. But first, I wanna get into the 3 main types of agreements, just to framework this thing out, that people have with their agents. So if you're selling a home, you have an agreement that's typically called the exclusive right to sell, or the ERTS for short. The second one is the buyer agency agreement. And I want to state clearly that this has been in place for a minimum of 3 decades, a little more than 3 decades. This is not new. However, many agents would not present this or even bring it up to somebody until they found the home that they wanted to buy. And then they just kind of slid it in there in the stack of all the other documents that you had to sign, like the seller disclosure, purchase agreement, lead-based paint, disclosure regarding real agency relationships, affiliated business arrangements disclosure, blah, 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 blah. All those documents, they would just literally slide it in and then gloss over it. Great agents, and we train our agents to be great agents, bring this up before showing any homes, period. We've been conducting buyer consults, and I'm a big believer in buyer consults for over 10 years. Why? Because it provides full transparency. I believe it should be part of what the first meeting with an agent should be. So I'm not scared of this. I think this is actually a great thing. We believe, as the best agents do, that a buyer is going to buy and a seller is going to sell. Other than that, who you choose matters, aka who educates you, informs you, communicates with you, negotiates the best for you, and then provides the smoothest transaction actually getting to a closing. So the third agreement is the purchase agreement. This is an agreement with all the details and contingencies between a buyer and a seller, and is really the engine that drives the train of a real estate transaction. I call it the engine because not only does it have the purchase price, but it also has the timelines the buyer and the seller both agree to and then have to adhere to. So this really keeps everything moving and on pace. So those are the 3 most typical agreements you're gonna see in real estate. So going back to the seller and the listing agent, and the contract there states what an agent will get paid, usually a percentage of the commission price. In the same agreement, if a seller was offering compensation to a buyer's agent, and this has always been a choice, it's never been forced, it would be explicitly written right in there. As a person, an agent representing a buyer up until this point, over my entire 23-year career, I know what I was getting paid to bring a buyer and successfully close a deal through the multiple listing service. There was a field in there up until now, and when an agent loaded a home into the multiple listing service, the listing agent also put in the commission. Now, I had no fear when representing a buyer that I was going to get paid or what was being charged to the seller for me, because if they made any sort of a change to that between the time that I showed the home and the time of the closing, that's an actual ethics violation, and the Board of Realtors would step in, go after them. They do it a couple of times, they will lose their license. They will lose their license, as they should, because they made a promise of payment and then decided not to fulfill that promise. right? Like anybody should. Now, to be clear, there is no standardized commission in real estate. It actually varies quite a bit from region to region, and it's always been annoying to me to see articles like this saying that the standard commission is gone when there really has never been a standard commission in real estate. So here's what's fundamentally changing. Number one, the MLS is no longer going to have the ability to have a commission field showing what an agent compensation is being offered to your agent or a buyer's agent if you're buying a home for working with you as a buyer. Now, it doesn't stop a seller from paying a commission to the buyer's agent. It just means it can't be achieved on the MLS platform. It can't be advertised on the MLS platform. So now the buyer-broker agreement is the only way an agent representing a buyer is guaranteed commission or guaranteed payment, even if it's offset by the seller. Up until this point, many agents would wait to get this document signed by the buyer until they were writing an offer. Now, the second part of the new law surrounding this is an agent must get this signed before the first home is ever shown to you. The intention of this is to increase transparency. Now, for weak agents in your market, in my market, they're gonna hate this. Now, the reason why, and I'm not afraid to call it my own industry, if you know me, you know I'm very disgruntled with real estate agents. Not all, there are a lot of good ones, but a lot of them. A lot of agents are not good at showing their value, or what's worse, they don't add any value to a transaction. They're door openers. On the other hand, there are a lot of agents that do provide a buyer a lot of value. Value helping find the right property, value finding off-market properties, being a good negotiator of the price, a good negotiator of the terms, of the inspection, of the appraisal, and then finally helping to evaluate different mortgages and mortgage companies to refer buyers to for the best option for them for interest rates and closing costs, and then finally achieving a successful closing. We're living in a time right now where almost 40% of all real estate transactions do not get to a closing. A great agent has a high value here. The guys that are well trained and skilled after August 17th, I believe are really gonna get the shine, and I hope the result is an actual culling of the herd of real estate agents, way too many real estate agents, a culling of the herd of real estate agents over the next couple of months. So I'm gonna come at this from a different perspective. If you've ever gone to sell a home, typically you're gonna meet with several agents. They're going to pitch you on what they charge, and there are gonna be agents that charge more and agents that charge less, but then you're gonna weigh the pros and cons of the value that each one gives you, and the experience and the reviews and all of those different factors, and you're gonna say to one, hey, I'm gonna hire you. That's why the skill set of an agent that represents mostly sellers is different from the ones that represent mostly buyers, because they've gotta be more of a salesperson and a presenter, and they've gotta be able to show their value. Buyer's agents up until this point did not have to do that. They have to go into other people's homes and present what they offer of value. This is what I charge and this is why I charge it, and have to sell themselves. Buyer's agents at this point just like kind of, met you at a house, and you never really talked about what they got paid, and they just help you get into houses. And if you ended up buying one that they showed you or took you to, they'd make a big fat commission check. So now what's gonna happen in the real estate industry is you're gonna see that buyer's agents have to develop the skill set that listing agents have. So a listing agent will have to show their value in what they charge and show proof of it, as all people you hire should be doing for anything that you do, whether it's a real estate agent or a roofer or somebody coming out and redoing your kitchen, any service out there. This is why I'm worth what I'm worth and how I can help you achieve your goal. Buyer's agents previously didn't have to worry about any of this, but now they're gonna be forced to adopt this model. So what that means for you as a first-time home buyer or just a home buyer is you're gonna have to now interview several agents, or you should interview several agents, to find what they charge, find what their value is, and the proof they have to produce the result that they're telling you that they actually, got for their clients, right? Because like I said earlier, there's an agreement between the buyer and the buyer's agent that's no longer just spoken words or a handshake. This is an agreement saying before you even see your first home, this is my agent, and holding both you and the buyer's agent in a contract in Michigan. In Michigan, it's called the buyer-broker agreement. Now, there can be a different word or a different name on the form, depending on what state you're in, but the document is going to be mainly the same, some state-specific changes. A few of the most important things that you gotta make sure is covered in there is, one, how long are they gonna represent you? Is this 90 days? Is this 6 months? Is it 5 years? I wanna know what that date is. Second, what are they actually gonna charge for helping you? Third, and this again is gonna be state specific. Here in Michigan, the question is gonna be, what happens after the contract ends to any potential homes that you were shown? Because what happens is, if you see a home with an agent, that's the agent that's owed the commission even after the contract ends. So if you fire an agent, but you want to go back and write an offer on a home that they showed you, that originating agent is still owed that commission. You can actually put that in the contract to change that if you want to. So these are the things, these are the three things that I believe has to be discussed 100% in every agreement. So it's important that when you meet with agents and you interview them, you cover these three details and they show it to you in writing. So I've seen some early adopters start applying these new laws already. They start going over buyer broker agreements and explaining all of the things to buyers. But a lot of agents are going to frame it, at least the commission portion, a little bit differently, a way that I just frankly don't agree with. They're just going to have a conversation with you and be like, yeah, man, hey bro, don't worry about it. I got your back. The seller's going to pay my commission. You'll be fine. You don't ever have to pay for it. But you're not going to see that in the buyer broker agreement in writing. Therefore, those words don't actually exist. What they tell you versus what's in writing. It's got to be in writing for it to exist. Verbal doesn't hold up. Will not hold up in court, right? There are going to be some weaker agents out there that are going to say, hey, we're going to get the seller to pay for it. But in actuality, you are responsible for the commission if you're signing something saying, yes, I'm going to pay this commission. Now, part of what's going to happen next is after those commissions come off the multiple listing service, as they already have in my market, we're going to have to negotiate before even going and showing you a home what that commission is from the seller. Unfortunately, we're negotiating that with the listing agent, and that happens all behind closed doors and our buyers' backs. It happens without you knowing. The buyer's agent is probably going to talk to the listing agent and have that discussion about what the commission is, and what if it's less? What if it's less than what's on the agreement? And that's where my concern is coming in as a real estate broker, as a real estate agent, and as someone who really wants to do my best for my clients. So I'm going to frame this out a little bit differently. So before, it used to be fun to just go look at houses. Like before, all you had to worry about was, do I love it? Does it fit my needs for myself and my family? Are they negotiable on the price? Are they negotiable on the terms to where I need to be? But now there's a fourth element or a fourth question added in. That questions you're going to have to ask your buyer's agent before you go see every home, because a lot of them will not be proactive and just tell you, is how much is the seller paying my agent? And is it going to be enough to cover the agreement that I have in place with my agent? I'm not trying to laugh, but like, it's funny that when outside entities like the Department of Justice or big government gets involved, instead of actually making things easier or simpler or more transparent as intended, they're really just adding more complexity and more anxiety is added to a real estate transaction. So if it doesn't cover the amount that's stated on the buyer HC contract, technically you get to pay the difference as the buyer. So to answer the questions that I've been getting around all of this and try to clear up some confusion, do I have to pay a buyer's agent? The answer depends on what the seller is offering and what the agent is charging and what you've agreed to. Now there are, however, I will say this, two camps of people out there right now. One side that does not see a value in a real estate agent. Agents just open doors. They don't add anything beyond that. And frankly, that's a valid opinion. I've got the same opinion of a lot of agents I've worked with in my market. Okay, man, you open the door, you kind of brought a contract. It wasn't even kind of filled out right. And now I'm doing all your work to make sure this thing gets to a closing because I've got a fiduciary responsibility to my seller. And just because you're not doing your job doesn't let me off the hook, because then my seller doesn't sell their house and the buyer doesn't get the house. So now I'm doing a lot of extra work. That happens all the time in real estate transactions. That's not me complaining, that's just me more of stating a fact, right? Now the flip side is, by being forced to present their value ahead of time, I think a lot of buyers are going to gain awareness of the differences between the door openers and the professionals that really do add value to a home purchase. Ultimately, over time, I believe this is going to add a level of professionalism to the business that has been missing. Now, it's going to take time to get there, but is missing, especially as the former, the door openers, jump ship. And that's it. No one can force you to buy a house. I want to be clear on that. No one can force you to buy a house, especially where you don't know what your agent is being compensated and what's left that you might be responsible for. And before you do write that offer, it's within your rights to know exactly what the seller is paying a buyer's agent on that house, and within your right to ask your agent to lower their commission to match what the seller is willing to cover. There's nothing wrong with asking an agent that question. I anticipate we're going to get that quite a bit. At that point, yes, I'm going to lower my commission, or no, I'm not going to lower my commission. You can then choose to write on the home or not write on the home, saying, you know what, with the added cost of the commission, this home is just untenable for me. It's not the right one at that price. And I respect that. Now, here's how my guys are handling this. Every time a home pays less than the agreement, we will notify the buyer in writing before we even show that home. At that point, we're going to have a win-win discussion around it. It doesn't mean necessarily that we're gonna lower our commission all the way. It doesn't mean necessarily that we're gonna hold firm. It's gonna be a case-by-case basis. What I don't want is I want 0 people out there in the world, my clients, right, blindsided when they're inside a home, they love the home, they wanna write an offer for a home, and find out there's an extra couple $1,000 bill associated with this home that they didn't know about before. I encourage all agents watching this to think about adopting that same level of transparency. Now, unfortunately, at the end of the day, this is gonna make the home buying process harder and more stressful. But on the other hand, you've got the winners. If there's always a loser, there's a winner. Everything got a little more complex, a little more stressful for a buyer. Somebody's gotta win in this thing, and that's gonna be the sellers. And the sellers are gonna have so much fun with this on August 17th. If their home is for sale for $400,000 on August 16th, and after August 17th, are they gonna reduce the price $12,000 or the 3% where that commission has come off the multiple listing service? No, no. On August 17th or August 18th, it's still gonna be for sale for $400,000. Before August 17th, there would be an amount on the MLS that's being paid to the buyer's agent, 2.5, 3.5%, whatever that was. It's now gone. And they're not gonna reduce the price just because it's taken off the multiple, just because that field is taken off the multiple listing service. They're just gonna keep that money and they're not gonna give it to you. So now you wanna be sure as a buyer, you get a heavy discount on the price of that home to cover that missing compensation. Or if you're gonna pay more or list price, then you gotta say, hey, you gotta pay this commission for us. Now, it'll be in the form of concession to offset the commission, but it's still gonna be there and it's still an ask. So here's what I'm gonna coach my buyers to do. Go aggressive, especially when there are no offers. Go extremely heavy on negotiations. And there's a reason for this, but I personally, I'm gonna work my tail off to get sellers to pay my clients way into the home that they want. Here's the reason. The opposite is also gonna be true. A lot of agents will tell their clients the seller's not willing to pay a commission at all and then not fight for their clients and instead tell their clients to go offer on something else, meaning less or no offers for that home, meaning we've got the upper hand in a negotiation, especially as a strong negotiator. Exactly where I like to be. So if there are any questions you have on this, on home buying, on home selling, on the law changes, anything, leave a comment below. I'm gonna be sure to get to each and every one of them, answer every question possible. In the meantime, my contact info is in the description below and my link to set up a time on my calendar to talk about your home purchase or your home sale is there too. My name is Mike Perna, local Metro Detroit real estate agent. Again, first time on here, don't forget to subscribe. We put out videos each and every week about Metro Detroit, home buying, home selling, and then frankly, we get to tour some pretty cool homes. And I love videoing those and putting those up. Thank you again, everyone, and see you on the next video.